Deputy. Deputy Murphy.
Thanks, Kieran Corla. Just want to start with some quotes from leading Fine Gael politicians. First one, I do not, as standard, keep text messages. That's not Minister Coveney either. That's the Taoiseach back on the 20th of November 2020. And we have another one. I do not hold on to text messages for long periods in terms of data on my phone and so on. That's Minister Coveney on the 31st of August 2021. And then Minister Coveney on the 7th of September 2021. I clear texts from my phones when, can't even read my own writing. Anyway, regularly. I clear texts from my phones, let's say, regularly. When business is done, something like that. Just like, at the risk of pointing out the obvious, that is not normal behaviour. Do you know what I mean? Forget about ministers or freedom of information or anything else. People don't do that. Unless they have something to hide, people do not finish a text message conversation and say, oh, that's done, I'll delete that. It's not like getting a letter and you don't want it and you put it in the green bin. You know, unless you're Deputy Healy-Rae with your Nokia and you don't have enough space for text messages, people don't do that. People do not delete text messages, just in terms of normal behaviour. But we're not dealing with normal, regular citizens here, of course. We're dealing with ministers. And ministers have obligations under the FOI Act to retain records. And I have to say, in all of the responses earlier by the government on the question of the motion of confidence, the thing that was kind of most troubling was that the main line of argument, when you weren't just attacking the opposition, which was most of the time, but when you were actually dealing with the issue, the main line of argument was, look, the man has apologised. What more do you want? You know, it was almost, this is cancel culture. You're trying to cancel the man for making a mistake. The man has made a mistake. He's done all this great stuff, and he's apologised. But he never apologised. He never acknowledged arguably the most significant thing in terms of all of this, apart from the original act of the cronyism, but in everything that followed, the most significant thing was the deletion of text messages relating to official government business and the breaching of the FOI Act by doing that. And he did not apologise for that. He never acknowledged that that was a mistake. And he tried to simultaneously, for example, on the second occasion to the committee, he tried to simultaneously maintain that, yes, he had deleted the text messages relating to the appointment of Catherine Zappone as Special Envoy, and simultaneously said, no, he did not. He does not, yes, he deletes text messages, but he does not delete text messages relating to government business because that would be in breach of the FOI Act, despite the fact that the two things like very clearly contradict each other. Maybe the most amusing, in a way, or certainly maybe raise my eyebrows the most in the defences of the minister was Minister McHugh, who at one stage said that if we vote no confidence in Simon Coveney, what message does that send to young people thinking about getting involved in politics? I don't know now. Maybe to the young people thinking about getting involved in Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, it would send a message about careerism, and there might not be much of a hope for strokes and so on because there's consequences for actions. But I think most people would say, well, it's good to send a message that, yes, there's consequences if you breach the FOI Act, if you're engaged in blatant cronyism, etc., etc. Because there really should be consequences, and this stuff should matter. And again, to go back in more detail through the pattern that is here, I think there is clearly a pattern, at least amongst some senior Fine Gael politicians, of consciously deleting text messages, which are official government business, to avoid there being an electronic paper trail of controversial decisions and to avoid them being accessed. I think there's now significant evidence to suggest that that is a conscious policy. The text messages that the Taoiseach was referring to back in November 2020 were messages that he had sent to Matthew O'Toole, the chair of the NAGP, who he had leaked the GP contract with the draft GP contract with the IMO to. And there were text messages about the delivery of the contract. And it was obviously very convenient. It's just technologically, there were WhatsApp messages so they therefore should have continued to exist in the cloud, but apparently were also deleted from there, which would require a special effort. You know what I mean? It's not in the normal business of people just deleting messages as they're finished with and so on, that somehow it's going to be gone. It would require a very special effort to remove that. Obviously, the Taoiseach is under Garda investigation for that. We'll see what transpires. I've previously given my views in terms of that, but it's quite significant. And then you get to this issue where the other contender for leadership of Fine Gael, very openly is saying that he's doing the same thing in terms of deletion of text messages. I would point out again, it is clearly in breach of the FOI Act, because someone who I think deserves a lot of credit for his work in trying to shine light onto the murky business of government and try to use the FOI Act, despite all of the frustrations that you have with it, is Ken Fox and Right to Know. And a consequence of one of the cases, and he's taken a lot of cases, but one of the cases that he took, the decision of the Information Commissioner, was this. Clearly, where email accounts or messaging on mobile devices are used to transact official business, such records should be filed as part of the records management process. And it's very clear that that didn't happen in terms of the case of the Taoiseach and the GP contract, and it didn't happen in the case of the messages on Simon Coveney's phone. The other point related to this, and it's something that Deputy Shorthall just referred to, is the point about, because there's like multiple elements of this, but is the point about the text messages between Catherine Zappone and the Taoiseach. And it's very, very troubling that you had journalists doing an FOI, looking precisely for records, including on the Taoiseach's mobile phone, in relation to this, between him and Catherine Zappone, and being told point blank that does not exist. Such records does not exist. And then the messages come out, there's controversy about it, obviously, and the response of the Taoiseach in a statement is to say that the relevant FOI officer who received the request checked all emails and letters and found no records. I was on annual leave at the time, the decision was released, and I wasn't contacted to check my phone for records. So someone is somehow empowered to say we've checked the phones and there isn't a record, because the phones are specifically mentioned, despite not having talked to the Taoiseach. I mean, it stretches credibility at the very least, or certainly would indicate a real problem in terms of process. And what that indicates, in my opinion, is that we have a significant problem here. Because the question is now posed, how many times have journalists, or TDs, or just ordinary people, been told that records don't exist, when actually the records do exist, and they're simply not caught out on it? That's the question that is posed as a result of this. And then, so that all the blame is heaped on this anonymous individual in the department, and I don't wish to make this anonymous individual not anonymous. I don't want to heap any blame on this person, because do you know what I mean? They're presumably doing their job. To be honest, I think there's political responsibility here. But the kind of twist at the end was then the Taoiseach told the media, oh, the person is no longer at the department. He just kind of like disappeared. You can imagine the staff photo from one year, and there's a blank face then the next year, because all the blame is being put on this person, another person thrown under the bus, this time to protect the Taoiseach. And then the final thing on this whole saga is, 2 or 3 days ago, the Taoiseach is on the radio about all of this, and precisely to avoid dealing with the actual repeated flagrant breaches of the FOI Act by the government, to cover stuff up, Taoiseach announces we're going to have a review. Forgetting the fact that there's actually been a review in process for 2 months, forgetting the fact that we actually have a law, we have decisions about the law already from the Information Commissioner that could be applied and need to be applied right now, announces that we're going to have kind of another review, simply to kind of distract attention and to pretend the problem is that there's a problem with the law as opposed to the actual implementation of it. So I just say, how about you implement and obey the law as it actually exists. And then, yes, I'm all for reform of it, as being outlined, in the direction of making things more transparent, etc. But it isn't an excuse for breaking the law as it currently exists. Thank you.